Hey there, welcome to the Business Behind the Game, where we break down the business side of sports, from emerging trends to companies that are shaping the sports business industry today. I'm Kushag, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the fastest growing yet controversial industries, sports betting. In fact, sports betting has gone from being valued at $7.5 billion in 2022 to being projected to be valued at a huge $150 billion by 2030. Not only is it changing how fans watch the game, it's also changed league partnerships and team revenue streams. So how do we get here, and what's driving this massive growth, and how are sportsbook companies such as FanDuel and DraftKings shaping the industry? Let's break it all down. So sports betting until 2018 was largely illegal due to the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, which was passed back in 1992, which resulted in a ban of sports betting in most states. However, in 2018, the Supreme Court struck down the Protection Act, and that allows states to legalize sports betting. Since the legalization of sports betting, there's about 38 states who have come into the scene, and more joining every single year. Sports betting depends from state to state, such as in California and Arizona, they allow mobile betting, and other states like Nevada who allow in-person betting such as in casinos. Sports betting has become mainstream since it was officially legal, and there's celebrity and athlete ambassadors, there's betting segments on ESPN, and a lot more. Sports betting has drastically changed how fans interact and watch the game. Now, let's talk about the huge sportsbook companies which are shaping the industry. You've probably heard of some sportsbooks such as BetMGM, FanDuel, DraftKings, Fanatics, and a lot more. But let's take a deep dive into the two biggest ones right now, FanDuel and DraftKings. Originally, they were both fantasy sports, and they now turned into two giant sportsbook companies that are changing the industry today. FanDuel was co-founded in 2009 by Nigel Eccles, and FanDuel was set out to find a new way to play fantasy sports. Eccles had a background in economics and tech. Back then, fantasy sports were long-term and extremely slow and unengaging for the audience. They would take up full seasons, and they would generate very, very slow results. However, FanDuel changed the way fantasy sports work by allowing users to make new teams every single day, win money faster, and move on. This business model caught fire and changed the industry for good. DraftKings, founded in 2012 by Jason Robbins along with Paul Lieberman and Matt Kalish, Robbins had a background in economics and computer science. Previously, he was working as a marketing exec for Vistaprint. Similar to FanDuel, DraftKings adopted daily fantasy sports. However, this all happened before 2018 when the Protection Act was removed. So how did they do this? They used fantasy sports as a legal workaround to sports betting, as it didn't count as sports betting like sportsbook and casinos and other in-person betting things did. So in result, they built huge user bases before their betting was even legal. And once the Protection Act was removed, they were ready with already built user bases and brand loyalty to come up into the scene. Now let's jump into how these sportsbooks make profits. The sportsbook have something called a vigorish, which is better known as the VIG. Simply put, it's just a fee that is built into every bet that is placed. Let's say you and your friend make a bet for $100, and in that scenario, the winner of the bet will take all that money. However, in sportsbook, out of the $100 that you won, you would only get back around, let's say, $85 or $90, because the sportsbook will always take a cut of the bet regardless of who won. Now, on a bigger scale, let's look at it. There's millions of bets being placed every single week, and this is how the sportsbook generates a ton of profit. Aside from the VIG, which puts the odds in the sportsbook favor, aside from that, they also make profits out of parlays and other live betting, prop bets, and micro betting. These types of bets are a lot more thrilling and also give the user a stronger sense of engagement, as some of these are live during the game and not placed before. However, sports betting is not all easy money, as there are many challenges behind it. The three main challenges sports businesses face are regulation, ethics, and competition. So sports betting has constantly changing rules depending on state to state, as the sports betting legalization is dependent on the state and not dependent on the country. So this makes it complicated. Sportsbook, unlike other companies, can't have a consistent can't keep consistency throughout a country. And what makes it more challenging is that it raises the cost of entry, and also international laws will definitely complicate it even farther. Second, ethics. Just people and critics constantly going on about how ethical sports betting is, questioning if there's a line between engagement and exploitation of the bettors. Sportsbook and fantasy sports apps have put in tools for responsible gaming, such as deposit and time limits, but critics still argue that the marketing and ads and the media that they have still draws a lot of users who get addicted to it. Finally, competition. Sports betting is one of the most competitive industries, and there's new sportsbook like Fanatics coming to the scene every single day. And there's also media and tech companies who are trying to integrate sports betting into live broadcast, media, and a lot more. The industry over here is being changed, and those who adapt the fastest will be the ones to thrive. So, what's next? The future of sports betting is definitely going to integrate AI and new tech. In fact, AI is already being used to help set odds. Sports teams and leagues are also talking about integrating live betting into their broadcasts in hopes of increasing their user engagement. Sports betting is still in its early phases and clearly has a ton of room to grow. Now wrapping things up, we talked about sports betting and how it rapidly caught fire after the removal of the Protection Act. Also talked about how the huge companies like FanDuel and DraftKings came into the industry with the challenges that they faced. As for if sports betting is ethical, I believe it definitely can be, but only if companies put in a real effort to encourage engagement of the sports rather than exploitation of the bettors for their money. Thanks for tuning into the business behind the game, and make sure to drop a follow and review. I'm Kushag, and I'll catch you in the next one.